The United States is among the most desired countries in the world right now. But before you start planning your Silicon Valley dream, did you know that your country might be on the exclusive travel ban list? Let's get into some countries you should never travel to if you're planning to go to the US. First on our list is Northern Cyprus. This country, or part of the world, has an interesting history. Turkey is the only country willing to recognize its existence, for the lack of a better word. Turkey also acts as the middleman between Northern Cyprus and the rest of the world. The Cyprus dispute dates back as far as 1878, and the issue is so serious that some countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan were forced to withdraw their recognition after international pressure. So it should not come as a surprise to anyone in the US does not allow citizens of Northern Cyprus into the country, even though there is a representative office of the state in Washington, D.C. If you had plans to travel here on the next holiday, we politely advise you to please reconsider them. Next is Iran. In 2019, up to a dozen Iranian students who were set to begin their graduate studies in America had their visas abruptly terminated. And it was not because of our little friend COVID-19, who has definitely overstayed its welcome. 2019 is pre-pandemic time. This happened when the tensions between the two countries were on a rise. Iran was threatening an all-out war if the US or Saudi Arabia held a military strike against the now global military superpower on account of the attack that damaged Saudi oil facilities. This onslaught, which Iran was being accused of, was serious, by the way, because it actually disturbed the global flow of oil. Upon further inquisitions, it was discovered that the students' visa status had been updated on August 30th, and they were prevented from boarding in early September, while the attack took place on the 14th of September. In reality, there has been a travel ban from the Muslim states since the time Trump joined office back in 2017, on account of it being one of the countries responsible for numerous terrorism-related crimes since 9/11. This anti-immigration policy had affected more than 30,000 Iranians, including a radiologist named Payman, residing in Tehran, who, when he now celebrates birthdays with his family, is the only person in the room. Payman's wife and daughter had moved to the US for treatment for his daughter, who was suspected to have a genetic disease. When Payman applied for his visa, it was denied because of the travel ban. He had to resort to fulfilling his financial obligations from Tehran. In one interview, Payman talked about his wife and daughter paid him a short visit in 2018. "My daughter hardly recognizes me anymore," he said. "We cannot imagine how depressing that might be. You might want to jot this down. Iran is a no-go zone." Next up, Syria. On December 7th, 2015, Donald Trump called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until the representatives of the country can figure out what the hell is going on in his presidential candidate speech, and so that was what he did. Syria was probably the most likely state that was bound to be on the list because of the constant unrest and violence prevailing in the country brought upon by Israel. Most Syrian nationals were barred from entering the US on grounds of them failing to cooperate with the US, along with the public safety and terrorism-related problems that were resurfacing time and time again. Although the conflict in Syria continues, with the case being named under the humanitarian crisis category, the US does not bat an eye. The US government has even warned US citizens from participating in the ongoing armed conflict, which is wise because there might be a not too small risk of kidnapping and detentions of US citizens and Westerners throughout the country. So unless you want your visa to be terminated or get involved in a life or death skirmish for that matter, steer clear of Syria. Now on our list is Somalia. The US government has recognized this Muslim-majority country as a haven for terrorist groups, explaining that because of the unstable government and issues with recognition of electronic passports, along with many other reasons, Somalis are banned from entering the country. The prejudice in this country runs deep. When the Somalis cross the US border and apply for refugee resettlement, there are two major issues the embassy faces. The first one is finding out whether the refugee is an innocent human being or someone with malintent. This proves to be more problematic than normal because for nearly 2 decades there was a civil war taking place in the country. Among the violence and the prevailing anarchy, no one was issuing birth certificates, driver's licenses, passports, diplomas, marriage or divorce documents or any other government records reflecting that citizens even existed. Plus, there were no criminal records that showed who belonged to terrorist groups and who didn't. When the embassy did manage to find this out one way or the other, there was no way to cross-check whether any of the information provided was true or not. There was even a case of a married couple, Mohammed Abdurrahman Osman and Zainab Abdurrahman Mohammed, who had successfully managed to lie their way from refugee applications in China to permanent residence in Arizona. Allegedly, there were total counts that came up to 11, which included, first and foremost, their own identity. Talk about trust issues. It is due to these reasons that some people believe that Somalia deserves a place on President Trump's list of travel ban countries. So, you may want to curb your desire to see the breathtaking beaches of Somalia's capital because the US sure has. Now let's take a look at Yemen. This Muslim-majority country was on Trump's initial travel ban list that came about in 2017, but the newly elected President Biden had revoked the restriction, calling it a stain on America's national conscience. However, things are not always what they seem. Biden getting rid of the ban meant that many people with other kinds of visas can reapply or have their cases checked again, but these do not include those with diversity visas that expired during the ban. The Diversity Visa (DV) program came into being after the Immigration Act of 1990 was passed, which aimed to give out 55,000 immigrant visas annually in an attempt to diversify the immigrant population in the United States. So, these people had only one option, according to the administration, to return to the lottery, where they may spend years applying and never be selected. One such case was that of Al-Saidis, who spent 16 years applying to the DV lottery and finally secured the bag in 2017. He, along with his then pregnant wife and 2 young children, set off to the US embassy of the country, which was a feat in itself because not only were there literally warplanes flying overhead, but they also had to borrow a lot of money during the trip. It was only upon reaching did they find out about the ban, and after waiting for weeks in hopes of the ban being reversed, they started the journey back. But this time, due to having no savings left, they had to travel by sea, where about 27 hours into the journey, Reem, Al-Saidi's wife, suffered a miscarriage. Al-Saidi now works as a day laborer because he was unable to get his previous bank teller job back after he left it in hopes of making a new life. A lawyer explained the lift very eloquently. President Biden dusted off Trump's closed sign and locked the door behind him. Traveling to Yemen? Cancel your plans first thing in the morning. Now, at second last, Venezuela. Venezuela is a country with a Catholic majority, which means a few eyebrows were raised when it was added to the list of countries that were under a travel ban, because Donald Trump had previously claimed many times of putting travel restrictions on Muslim-majority countries only. The reason for the ban was cited as the failure to verify whether certain citizens pose a national security threat to the US. The South American country's government was called uncooperative for not disclosing public safety and terrorism-related information adequately. Although the restriction is confined to the officials of government agencies and their immediate family members, it is better to be safe than sorry, because all Venezuelan citizens remain under active scrutiny by the US government. So, Venezuela, ciao, bye for now. Now, for the country that will shock you to the core. And sitting at number 1 is North Korea. And we thought Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump were best friends. With President Biden coming to office, the US foreign policies saw a lot of changes, including some travel bans being terminated entirely, such as those on Iraq. However, Biden made no moves to reverse the restrictions on North Korea, which first came into effect on the 1st of September 2017. It was speculated that these sanctions came into existence to put economic pressure on the North following their nuclear and missile testing, but the case of Otto Warmbier, a US citizen who was imprisoned in the country for 17 months, only to be returned in a state of unresponsive wakefulness, leading to his death shortly after, won by a mile. And that's all we have for today. I hope you keep these countries in mind the next time you plan a rendezvous, because getting in hot waters with the US Embassy might not be the best way to spend your vacations. Bye!